If you want to talk about passion, you want to talk about something that makes me, that fills my heart up. It's watching people become the very best version of themselves and achieve their goals in life.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm your host, Chris Naugle, and today's guest, Nick Koumalatsos, is one you're going to want to hear. Nick Koumalatsos is an inspiration, changing people's lives. He had a rough upbringing, landed himself in juvenile detention, but wanted to clean himself up in his early teenage years. So he decided he was going to become a Marine. Waltzed in and they said, no, we don't want you. Well, that gave him a mission, and that mission led him to go on to 12 years of serving this country, fighting for our freedom, trying to climb up all the ranks in the military. And then after 12 years of doing unbelievable things, of providing protection and freedom for so many of us, he went out and now he's doing some amazing things for all of you. He's helping people in a lot of ways, helping them transition from war to civilian life. He's helping people through his coaching, his mentorship, his books, and so much more. But the way he views life is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to walk through the chapters of Nick's life. We're going to teach all of you exactly what he does, but we're not going to just teach. We're going to talk about how he's done it. And we're going to focus on one thing: cost. Cost is only an issue in the absence of value. What cost am I talking about? It's not a monetary cost. It's the cost of freedom. It's the cost of your family, the cost of your life. What value do you put on that? Cost is only an issue in the absence of value. Dive in to the chapters of Nick's life and let's see what you value. All right, Nick, thanks for joining me on the show today.
Absolutely. My pleasure. It's going to be a good one, man. This is going to be based off our beginning conversation already.
Well, here's what I want to do. There's so much to unpack in this conversation. I want to almost treat it like chapters of a book. So let's start chapter one. Your childhood was an interesting one. Growing up, traveling and being moved around so much up to age 12, that has an impact on a child, and it had an impact on you. It actually had a negative impact, landed you in juvenile detention, I think is what they call it. Like, talk a little bit about what that was like being a kid and having to jump state to state and state. Like, what impact did that have on you?
It's funny. I just did a podcast with my mom and we talked a lot about that. And at the time, and I remember a distinct time, I broke her heart. We didn't have money and whatnot. And I think we got to a place and I never unpacked. Like, all my clothes were in those black contractor trash bags. And I didn't unpack, and she's like, honey, why haven't you unpacked? And I was like, well, we're just going to move again. So it's just easier to just leave it there and to live out of that. Right.
Wow.
And I distinctly remember her face, and you can be, as a parent, you can imagine realizing the impact that you have, what you're doing in life, and how that statement right there has impacted a child. And so at the time, it was just brutal, right? Because and this is my perception. I don't know if this was exactly the way it was, but I distinctly remember waking up in cars and being like, where are we at? And we're like, oh, we're moving. So we got up early in the morning. She threw me and my brother in the car and we were off to move somewhere else. Now, was it exactly like that? Was there words? Was there a lead up to it? Possibly they could have told us, but as a kid, you maybe don't register it until you're in the 1984 Corolla heading down the highway. You know what I mean? With your black trash bag. So yeah, at the time it was difficult. You got to think every 6 months, you're the new kid on the block. Right. And we're talking about the 80s where real bullying took place, in person.
That was some real stuff back then, man. I remember.
Me and my wife are catching up with season 4 of Stranger Things, and there's a horrible scene about bullying at a skating rink, and and we looked at each other and we're like, how shitty is that? But that's the shit that kids talk about bullying now, and people hurt feelings and on the internet and all this kind of stuff. And I get it, it's horrible, you shouldn't do it, but man, there's some horrible shit that went down in schools back in the 80s. You had to be tough. And if you weren't tough, you would get your lunch money stolen legitimately. And so me and my brother were with those kids. We were every 6 months, we were the new kids. And so, and we weren't, we didn't have a father in our lives. So we weren't like the tough kids, but we had each other, and we were very smart. We were very, very clever, very street smart. So we would literally, like, the bell would ring, and I remember me and my brother would like run home, like dodging, certain kids and certain streets, and, navigating back to the house before, neighborhood kids found us and whatnot. But nonetheless, hindsight, it built a lot of mental toughness and resilience. Joining the military for me was very simple, like moving around in the military, even traveling now. I'm 40 years old and traveling now, very easy, because that's my whole life. And there's a lot of people that grew up in, say, a suburb or a rural area, and they never left their county their entire life until they're 18. And now they're traveling all over the world, living out of a backpack. And like, for me, I'm like, this is normal. You know what I mean?
Interesting. But yeah, like, let's go into the juvenile detention. Like, where did that come in? So, I know that has an impact. You're bouncing around. You never feel like there's any one place you're going to stay. Always the new kid on the block, getting bullied, having to become tough or clever. And then all of a sudden, like, where did you go off that street? I'm
going to put my, my flag into the ground here. And I'm going to say it really has nothing to do with moving, as it is lack of fathers and lack of mentors in your life.
That's why you have that shirt that says "Make Fathers Great Again."
Make fathers great again. That's right. So that I attribute that to a lack of direction, a lack of purpose, and me as a young man, becoming a young man, looking for purpose and looking for a tribe. I didn't do any sort of sports. I had you got to keep in mind, and I don't blame this on my mom at all anymore. Maybe when I was a kid, I did. But now I look at my mom, I'm like, she worked 2 jobs, supported 2 boys. And those 2 boys, well, my brother was much better than I was, probably because he saw the hell that I put the family through. But she was supporting her sons, working endless hours to put food on the table and to try to give us a decent place to live. Right. She really was doing her best, and all while working all those jobs, never gave up on her own dreams.
That's awesome.
And my mom now is a national best-selling author, New York Times list, Amazon list, yada, yada, yada. But she never gave up on her own dreams while doing all of that, and never went on any sort of support, state support, federal support, anything.
That says a lot about her.
Right. So she really, like, as an adult now, it's a very different picture than what it was. But at the time, I didn't do sports. I didn't have access to that. I didn't have access to, daily, positive male mentors in my life, or a strong father figure. And when you take a young man entering puberty, that had kind of grown up like that, and you don't get, especially if they're a high performing kid, right? Super smart kid, obviously has potential, because here I stand, right? And he has no direction, outlet, or purpose. You're going to be like that German Shepherd in the backyard, digging holes in the yard. You know what I mean? If you don't give that high performing dog a mission, a job, something to do, training, they will fuck your shit up.
That is a great analogy.
And that's what I did, right? Like, I was a high performing German Shepherd with nothing to do but cause trouble.
That is such a great way. It's the perfect analogy, because you get that visual of that German Shepherd. We've all seen it, right? Running around the back, full of energy, digging holes, scratching at anything it can. And you just didn't give it a direction. And there's so much to be said about that in life, which I'm definitely going to cover that. But let's take a second and go to chapter 2. So chapter 2 is, you entered the military. Let's just talk a little bit about that, because it wasn't just like anyone else. You go down to the Marines recruitment center, and all of a sudden like, oh, great. Hey, you're here. Let's have you. They looked at your past and they said, we don't want you.
Yeah.
But that wasn't good enough.
They basically said, not a chance.
Yeah.
Chris, not a chance, Nick. Sorry, but of course, first they were like, oh, come on in, sit down. What's important to you? Blah, blah, blah. The whole sales pitch. Like, let me get your information. Let's go. I'll go run to the back and check you out. And they came out just shaking their head like, never going to happen, bud. Like, you're a convicted felon. You dropped out of high school, yada, yada, yada. Like, never going to happen. Anyways. So that started. Yeah. Which is funny. I've made videos about that with my personality. And it's almost it can be a negative sometimes, because no is a good thing. Being told no is a good thing. But in my youth, being told no was like a challenge, so they said basically never going to happen. I said, oh, is that a fact? Watch this. And I've told this story on other podcasts before, but I call it, I hit the nuclear option. I literally blew up my life. And if you remember some of those stories, I was like living on the beach. I was making thousands of dollars cash a week. I was looking back, I was living the life. No kids, no, significant other, tons of cash in my pocket, my own car, house on the beach. It was rocking, right? And when they told me no, I blew it all up. I ended up getting a cheaper car, like a little bitty like Honda thing. I ended up moving out of that house and moving in with my grandmother, quit both those jobs, got a job at night. I think minimum wage was like $4.50 or $4 or something like that. This would have been 98.
Yeah, early, yeah. Well, actually, it's funny. Yeah, 98 was like $5 an hour.
Yeah, I think it was below $5 an hour as a night projectionist at a movie theater. So I started all the movies. I worked the night shift at the movie theater, and then started going to college. So like went from having thousands of dollars in my pocket a week to basically nothing, being poor, like completely poor, getting a check of like, I remember my first check. I go from making close to, $1,000 to, $2,000 a week. Actually, some weeks I made $4,000 a week to like $150 a week paycheck.
And let's just put that into perspective. There's a lot of people listening that didn't grow up in the 80s, 90s, and don't have any relevancy that like back then, $4,000 a week, the world was yours. Like
it was whatever you want.
I don't even know how to paint that picture.
No, I can't.
Whatever the heck you wanted, you did.
And what's funny is like, I look back at those times and I'm like, where is that money? I have no clue where that money went. It was just as easy as it came in, it went out even easier. I was buying my friend's stuff. It was a big party, and I wasn't even doing drugs or drinking. I was just living life. And, but it's funny because I had no concept of like investment, saving. I was just living. And, anyways, so I blew all that up because I all of a sudden got a mission, a purpose, and making that money and working like that didn't serve that purpose. Wow. So anything that did not serve that purpose was canceled. House on the beach, gone. I needed no rent. I needed to go live with my grandmother in a small room so I could go to school, work part-time at a movie theater to meet these goals. And I did that for almost 2 years.
So it took you 2 years from that time when they came out shaking their heads saying, not going to happen, kids. Sorry. No way. 17
to 19. I turned 19 in recruit training. I tried to join when I was 17. And it was a no-go. And then, cause I dropped out of high school, went and got my GED in 98. Just because, kind of going back to it, in the 10th grade, I was working that job where I was making all that money, 2 jobs and living on the beach. So when it came time to go back to my, junior year of high school, I was like, there's no way that I could give this up. There's no way I can give this money up. So it just didn't make sense. I'm like, I'm not going to sit in a classroom for 8 hours a day to go talk about nonsense. And so I said, I'm not going back. Told my mom. She was like, okay, what are you going to do? I went and got my GED, and then that was it. And anyway, and that's when, I Groundhog Day kicked in. I said, oh shit, this could be my year. This could be my life for the next 20 years. I had this flash that the redundancy of this could potentially be like my life. Like this could be my life. No change, no nothing, no growth. And I basically panicked. And that's when I was like, I got to get out of here, and I'm going to go do something very drastic. So what's the hardest thing that I could do? Marine Corps. Got it. I'm going to do that. And they told me no. And I was like, okay, well, now you you just, lit a fire in me to now that is my full-time job, is to prove you wrong.
It's so crazy. Like, this is bringing me back in my life too. I'm 44, so I got you by a couple of years. I started my first company November. When was it? It was, I think November 1992. And I just remember back to those years, like it was just different times.
Yeah.
So much different. It doesn't even seem like it was that long ago. I know it was, but like the simple fact that you said, when they said no, just like that, something snapped. Yeah. You had a mission, you had a goal that you weren't going to let go of. And
right.
And that's, I feel like sort of dead today. I just feel like people just accept no as like, okay, I just can't do that. All right, well, hey, I'll just do that. Something.
Well, I think that people have been programmed to do that, right? They've been programmed to be docile. They've been, and even the people that don't believe it, we have been programmed by media, by powers that be, whatever you want to call them, to be docile and to accept. Just look at school alone. What do? You show up at a certain time, you do this curriculum that really isn't going to help you in life at all whatsoever. You go stand in line, and then you go from one class to the next, and it's essentially a prison setup. You just get to go home at the end of the day. But everything is about falling in line, following the rules. This is the guideline. You graduate, then you have to go to college, and then you go to college and you go apply for a career, and then blah, 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 blah. And you're just programmed to be this cog in the wheel. So how do you expect something to, like, all of a sudden you have this initial thought to go, no, they're saying go left, but I want to go right. And then somebody goes, no, fall in line. You're like, oh, that's right. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, no, I got something. I'd be remiss not to bring this up at this point. I watch a lot of stuff on YouTube. I read a lot of books, much like you. And one of the ones that probably changed me forever was Earl Nightingale's Strangest Secret in the World. And in that 25-minute long YouTube, it's a book as well, but he goes on to talk about what is it that makes someone successful. And he spends a lot of time defining success and failure. And he says, I've been on this mission to figure what is it that makes some people successful and other people not successful. And he boiled it down to one thing. And he explains it so elegantly, better than I can. But he said, if you took 100 20-year-olds and you ask them all at 20, are they going to be successful at the age of retirement? The resounding answer is yes, 100%. I don't care if that's the 80s, 90s, or right up to today's time. It's always yes.
Yeah.
Fast forward to 60, 65. We'll just use Social Security numbers. Look at the statistics by Social Security. Out of those 100 eager, optimistic, yes, I'm going to win 20-year-olds, 5 of them are successful. Only one of them is what they would determine as wealthy, but 5 of them are successful. The other 95% are not. That's a staggering number that should wake everybody in this country up really quick. But let's go one layer deeper. Out of those 20 or those 20-year-olds, those 120-year-olds, what was it that the 5 did different than the other 95? And he explains this. He says 5 of those 120-year-olds created. The other 95% of them conformed. They conform to other people's failed realities, other people's failed dreams. And I don't care who you are listening to this, when you're hearing Nick tell his story, what he just defined right there was the unwillingness to say, yes, I'm just going to conform. Yes, it's okay. I can't go to the Marines because you said, shaking your head, that, I was a bad kid.
Yeah.
That is not the answer I'm going to hear, because he wanted to create something. And that right there is that's what success is, folks. Wake up. Seriously, like, stop listening to people that haven't followed their dreams. Stop listening to people that haven't lived your perfect day. Start following people that are living the life, the dreams that you want. And if there's no one that fits that category, create your own path, because that's the only way you're going to do it, is to create. If you want to conform, which the world, believe me, the media, believe me, the government will push you so easily into this conformity mindset. Get in line, do this, don't do that. Everything will be fine. We'll take care of you. Bullshit. And I didn't mean to take anything, from where we're going with this, but it was so important that we define that you are a creator. And that's what you did right then and there.
No, it's beautiful. You're gonna have to send me that video. I want to dive into that. I want to take it one step further. Is, Yes. And I've never heard it actually said that way. Like you're creating, and what you are creating is a future for yourself, your own future, your direction, not the one that they're telling you to go do with, go to college, then go get a job and then go invest in your 401k and yada, yada, yada. And at 65 and a half, you can retire and get your social security and you can pull from your Roth IRA. That's complete all bullshit. Yeah.
Dude, the hair in my arms just stood up with that description of something.
So those 5 people, not only did they decide to go create their own life, and maybe they weren't creating a product, but what they're doing is they're creating a life for themselves. They chose their path and they're creating that path and they're laying it brick by brick. But what they're also doing is they're failing. And they're not afraid. And those 5 people, I guarantee you, if you could show me those 5 people and I could interview them, I guarantee every single one of those 5 people failed a ton.
100%.
And they just kept creating. That I think is a trait that we are losing. And I think it's and maybe it's coming back because I hear it being talked about more. I know I talk about it more. My friends talk about it more, but failing as much as possible but just not quitting. And I just recently posted something that, I was actually training and a friend of mine at jiu-jitsu was, said something off the cuff. And I just, I heard it. It was so simple, but I was like, oh, I could break this thing down into a book. He goes, I might be a loser, but I'm not a quitter. And I was like, those are 2 very, very different people. A loser can win. A quitter will never win.
That's right. The only way to fail. There's only one way to fail in life, and that's to quit. There is no other path to failure. None.
So with those 5 people, I guarantee they created something, they failed. They created something, they failed. By the time they got to 65, they had done so much that, and it's a snowball effect, right? You fail a bunch up front, but as those failures are starting to learn to where you're starting to mitigate risk. And you're like, well, I already done this. Now I've got experience. So becoming successful, later in life, when you've got 10, 15, 20 years of failures, I mean, it's almost cheating. Me being successful now versus 10 years ago, much easier. But I've got 10 years of fuck ups. You know what I mean? So now if I want to do something, I know the right recipe. I know exactly how to word something. I know how to talk to somebody. If I want to sell something, I know I've got experience in sales. I've got experience in marketing. I've got experience in communication. I got experience in leadership. These are all things that I had to fail at before that I could be good at them.
Absolutely. The other word that goes along with failure, though, is fear. I mean, we all have a different way of looking at fear and dealing with fear, but it's very real to some people, real or unreal. I remember when I was a pro snowboarder, I had just become a pro snowboarder, and I got invited to this big event in New Hampshire. And I got there, I'm going up the lift, one of the first ones up at the top.
You must have been one of the first then.
Oh, I was early, man. It was literally like I started snowboarding in the probably late 80s. And then,
the name Chad Ottenbright ring a bell?
Otterstrom?
I think it's Otterbright, Chad Otterbright. No,
that one doesn't ring a bell.
Oh, okay.
Otterstrom, Chad Otterstrom does. He was
maybe that's him. Maybe that's him. Yeah,
he's a legend.
Yeah, he's absolute crazy human being.
Yeah, that's probably the right guy.
Yeah,
yeah.
I did a show with him.
Yeah, there's a lot of unbelievable stories that come out of any professional athlete, but snowboarders are a bit crazy, and so am I. But I remember going up the lift, and I looked over to my left, and I saw the jump. Now, first time in a pro contest, and I looked down at this jump. I was so confident going up the lift. Now, all of a sudden, my confidence was gone because I saw something that scared the living shit out of me. That jump was massive. I'd never seen something so big. And all of a sudden, I'm like, maybe I should just take the lift back down because this isn't it. But I get to the top, and I remember walking around thinking, all right, these other guys, you got to be scared. And nobody lets out that fear. They don't show it, but you could tell they were. And in snowboarding, a lot like probably what you had, there's always got to be the guinea pig, the one that's going to test the jump. I'm sure the Marines is probably no different. Someone's going to be the guinea pig. Well, so by chance, I was the guinea pig, and I'm sitting there looking down the runway at this.
How old were you?
Oh, at this time, 19, probably, maybe.
Oh,
20.
man.
Yeah, 19, 20 years old. Brand new pro. I swear this is my first pro contest. I was so excited and nervous, but now that's just plain out scared out of my mind.
Yeah.
And the starter comes over to me and says, all right, Chris, you ready? Okay, this is that moment of silence. You're looking down at it and everything in your mind is telling you, all right, if I go too fast and I overshoot it, I'm going to break my legs. If I go too slow, I'm going to hit that deck and that'd probably break my back. And, everything that bad could happen is going through your head. And as soon as he says you're ready, you just say, yes, you're not ready. In your mind, you're not ready. You're just scared.
It doesn't matter.
But then the one thing that, I don't want to say leaders or creators or all of us have to do, you have to decide, are you going to leap? So I leaped. And at that time, you're going down a runway, picking up speed, and then you're in the air. But right at that second, and this is so much business, this is so much like the military, this is everything in life. At that second, after you've leapt, everything changes because instinct kicks in. All those times you practiced, all those times, the training, the rehearsal, just the memory.
Yeah.
You do that and I landed, I rode away. And at that point, I could think of nothing else other than how fast can I get to the top of that hill to hit it again. I got this trick and that trick and that trick. Folks, like that is the difference. Like everything we're going to talk about in this interview relies on that one leap. Like until you leap, nothing will change in your life. That moment, I can't explain the feeling after you land. And even if I didn't land perfectly, if I skid it out, the fear's gone. Yeah. But you will never experience that if you don't take that leap. And this was that leap for you, Nick. Like that was your leap. And like so all these years you gave everything up. Now, all of a sudden you're bound and determined you're going to be a Marine. How did you do it? Like, did you just walk back in there and be like, hey, I'm doing this with or without you? I can't believe it would be that simple.
No, I wish that it, you wish that it was, but unfortunately it's not. I mean, that was, like I said, it's a 2-year process and I had all kinds of things. It was 2 felonies, I think a couple of misdemeanors. It was, I admitted that I had done drugs. So it was a drug waiver. My ASVAB, because I didn't graduate high school, my ASVAB score had to be above a certain score. I got over 100 letters of recommendation. So I had my mom at one point, because I was a bad kid, put me on Wellbutrin, which I remember she tells the story in the podcast. I put my hand on the dash and I said, Mom, I don't know if it's the medicine, I say, or something, but every time I take this, I get so angry. And she looked at me and she saw my hands like digging into the dashboard. And she goes, okay, well, we're not going to take that anymore. Last thing you want is a kid, a boy going through puberty going, this medicine makes me really angry. And, but because I had taken it, and I don't know if I admitted it or it was in my medical records or whatnot, but I had to go see a shrink for that. And he denied me because he told me to count back by 100 by sevens. And I just couldn't, my brain just wouldn't do it. I just I got to the first one and I just couldn't do it. And he's like, okay, denied. So he denied me. So I had to appeal that. So that's the reason why it took so long, is I had so many different things. I had to go to MEPS multiple times. It was difficult. Very easy to quit, but I was just so determined that I was like, there was no other option other than going there and becoming a Marine. That was the only option. And there was nothing in the universe that was going to deter me from that. But talking about fear, have you ever had Tony Blauer on?
No, I have not.
I got to link you guys up.
Please
so he does an entire fear talk. And I brought my nephew to the Squire program in California. It's a 15-hour event for sons and fathers to go through. And it's kind of like a rite of passage. A lot of things that we read about with young men in history books that we no longer have, right? Which is obviously a big problem. There's no rite of passage for a young man to become a man and to learn these lessons and this switch. Like, you are now a man and you need to be held accountable of such, and you need to act accordingly. And what does that mean? So for 15 hours, it's both physical and mental and educational. They talk about that and they treat these young men as men. And they say, you are no longer boys, you are men. And this is what that means. And so it was a great experience. We're hosting one November 5th in North Carolina at my location for 50 people. So 25 groups. And anyway, so Tony Blauer was a guest speaker there, and he does an entire talk about knowing no fear, and not N-O fear, but K-N-O-W fear. and what fear is, and how our caveman brain breaks down fear. And what he says fear stands for is false expectations appearing real.
Wait a second. Is he bald, tall?
No.
There's another Navy SEAL that does a talk just like that, all about, but anyway, keep going. I thought for a second,
I'm wondering who that is. I think I do know who you're talking about, but so Tony Blauer is like a 45, 50-year martial artist, been heavily in the military community, supporting SOF and some other things. But nonetheless, he says fear is false expectations appearing real. So thinking about you going up on that ramp, right? You're looking at this jump going, and you're thinking about all the different things that could happen. They haven't happened. So you're afraid of things that haven't happened yet, that in your brain is appearing as a real thing.
Yeah. There's a lion that's going to eat me every day.
Yeah. But you're discrediting all your time on the board, all your training, your talent, like everything that you've done. It could stop you. So he talks about instead of not no fear, there's no such thing as no fear, but knowing fear and how to respect it and how to use it, and not allow it to control you, but use it as a tool, like that spider sense. So if there is a lion, you're prepared, you know what I mean? But you're not so afraid of the lion that you never leave your cave and you die hungry. There's a difference.
I love it.
You know what I mean?
That Navy SEAL that spoke was so crystal clear on that one thing. And he parlayed it back to his missions and everything. It was so cool. Yeah. I love that you just brought that up. I gotta have him on. Yeah,
it's an amazing talk, and he's an amazing guy. But nonetheless,
and for that event you're doing, for 50 people, I want to make sure I put a link for anyone listening.
Yeah, I'll send a link in the description. Yeah, it's for sons or nephews. If you're a mom listening to this and you've got a son, you don't have a father figure, we have a network of, constantly I have guys reaching out that are either were part of the project, one of my people, or another Squire guy that's like, hey, I will be the stand-in dad. And every single class, there's about 3 or 4 stand-in dads, or we call them uncles, for some kid. And isn't that a beautiful thing? And that's what, honestly, that right there says a lot of the potential of our community and our country, that we have multiple men that will constantly say, oh, your son doesn't have somebody to go through. I will be that guy. I will be that role model.
It does.
I will be there to help him out, So we have 50 slots, or 25 slots total, for November 5th. 15-hour event. Going to get sandy, going to get a little wet. Going to learn a lot.
That's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
So let's move on to chapter 3. So you went through all these things. You finally figured out no one's going to tell me no. You're going to push through. You're going to go through anything it takes to get there. Yep. And now you're a Marine, but you went on to spend 12 years in special operations. You're Marine reconnaissance. Sorry if I get some of these wrong.
That's
Marine
right.
Special Operations Command. You did so much. 12 years.
Yeah.
Let's spend a little time talking about how did this shape Nick? Because each thing in your life that you go through, and we're seeing this pattern in each chapter that we're going through here, of how all these different building blocks of life, good, bad, or indifferent, all prepare you for the next phase of your life. Everything in life happens for a reason, to prepare you for what will come next. It's just a matter of whether you step through the door or you decide to let fear stop you. We talked. So now you're in there. How does this shape your life?
So I think without knowing it, I'll cut to the end, and I'll talk about the end of life. There is no point of destination. There's no finish line when it comes to growth and progress. If you think about it physically, I could be a certain amount of muscle and certain amount of body fat. And you say I get down to 4% body fat. It's like, okay, well, health wise, I can't actually get below 4. You know what I mean? Things will stop working, and my brain's going to shut off, and yada, yada, yada. Right. But I could actually, that doesn't mean that I'm there. I actually could put on more muscle. I could get bigger. I could get faster. I could get stronger. So my point being is there is no point of arrival. There is no finish line to cross in life. You just keep growing and getting better continuously for the rest of your life until you get put in the grave. That's it. So without really fully flushing that out and understanding that, in the military, there was no level of arrival. And I was like, I was looking for it. I was looking for the top. How do I get to the top? And there isn't one. So as I'm in the military, I'm like, okay, I'm here. What's the next level? Okay, I'm going to go to recon, force recon. I'm going to take that. I'm going to do that. Oh, there's this new thing, Marine Special Operations. Well, I'm going to go do that. And every single time I had to put myself through this horrible, uncomfortable existence to achieve that greatness. And I'm not going to say it wasn't, easy. It wasn't hard. It was extremely difficult. And each one became more difficult. And when you're there, it became more difficult. The jobs became more difficult. But that right there makes you so mentally resilient, so mentally tough. And then because you're used to this constant selection process, constant proving yourself, constant having to put in the work to get to achieve something, that you can take that for the rest of your life. And I'm not saying that you have to do that to get that in the military, or you can only get that in the military. You only get that, attempting special operations. The point being in life is that you're constantly challenging yourself. You're constantly challenging yourself in what you think you can do. And you're putting yourself in a place for potential failure, because growth happens on the fringe. Growth happens when you're pushing the boundaries of your life.
Love it. One thing that I'm going to parlay with that is I hired a mentor, I don't know, probably 5 years ago. And I was at a weird, I've had many, but this was one of the first ones that I spent this kind of money on. And I remember it was a selection process to have him work with me. And it was very difficult for me to for him to just do a call. And you get on the call, and I just thought it was just going to be a bunch of rah-rah, like other people that try to sell you a coaching package. This one wasn't. This one was like almost this militant, just like boom, 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 boom. And he gets to this one question. He says, "Why do you work so hard?" Because I told him, I work this many hours and I'm doing this and running this. Why do you work so hard? And I gave him an answer. Wrong. Gave another answer. Wrong. Another answer, another answer, another answer. 15 minutes. I'm firing back as quick. I'm getting frustrated inside. And I'm like, I just told you why I work so hard. He said, you're wrong. He said, and I can't work with you until you can tell me why you do what you do. And I said, you got to point me in a direction here. Like, just show me what you're referring to. He said, one word. He said, your perfect day. Well, it's more than one word, but your perfect day. I said, what is it? And I said, my perfect day, my perfect day. He said, there you go. He said, you can't tell me what your perfect day looks like. He said, until you can tell me what your day looks like from the second you open your eyes, take your first breath, what you see, what you smell, who you're with, straight through your entire day to the second you close your eyes at night and go to sleep. Until you can describe that in the utmost detail, I can't work with you. Just like when they said no to you, that was my no. I'm like, you bastard. I'm going to write my perfect day. I spent 30 days. I remember my wife being like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm writing my perfect day. And I spent, it was pages and pages and pages, but I got it. And I knew it. And I call him back and I said, I got it. And I literally barely got through the morning. And he's like, you got it. But he says, I want you to understand something. When you reach that perfect day or parts in that perfect day, what are you going to do? I guess I got lucky, or maybe I was already kind of getting to this point. I said, I'm going to create a new one. That is what I do every day. Like, and that's what you just said. Like, there is no destination. It's called the arrival syndrome. Look it up, folks. If you think you're going to arrive somewhere, guess what's next? The decline back down the other side. You like the roller coaster ride? Great. Arrive.
Yeah.
That's what this mentor was telling me. He was telling me, you'll never arrive. You'll never have a perfect day, because every time you get a part of that perfect day there, you have to recreate the next.
Yeah.
phase.
As soon as you think you arrive, if you're not moving past that, you're moving backwards.
Yes.
I actually just gave a talk about that. Exactly. If you're not moving forward, if you're not pushing the envelope, you think you're like, oh, I'm good, I'm just going to stay here. No, you're not. You're actually moving backwards in life. That's a fact.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
So yeah, I through the military, for me, it was like, how do I get to the next level? And then, my exit from the military was really more, that's when you kind of get into more of the human aspect and kind of like the degradation of doing that job over a period of time, and, brain function and your heart, and just being completely, this is, and it kind of goes into some other, other areas of life. But, I was from my military career was from 2000 to 2012. Obviously September 11th happened in 2001. And then that drastically changed the course of my career, as well as a lot of my, my friends. And that the entire generation was changed forever, right? The people that served during that time. So that portion, I guess, is a different chapter, leaving that and then trying to get healthy and whole after that was a mission unto itself.
Well, let's move on to that. Chapter 4. So you spent 12 years.
Yep.
Every step being challenged, every step never arriving, every step there is no destination. You're just pushing, trying to find this top. Now all of a sudden, you're not in the military anymore. You're a civilian. You got to adjust and change everything to the way that everybody else lives their life. So let's talk a little bit about that transition, because we talked offline about this. I'm not, military, so I'll be the first to say that, but I have the utmost respect for anyone in the military, because this country, the greatest country on earth, we have one thing that most other countries don't have, and that is freedom. And it comes at a massive cost. And a lot of my friends that I grew up with, I grew up born in 77, and I had a lot of friends in Iraq. I had a lot of friends not come home from Iraq, and I had a lot of my friends come home, but couldn't transition, and they didn't make it. Yeah. Suicide, drug overdoses. Like, listen, I come from a small little rinky-dink town. Like, you don't think these things happen. They happen everywhere.
Yeah, they do.
You do this transition, and I know you have a mentorship group, Always Forward, that helps a lot with this, but I want to talk first about your story on what this transition was like. And it'll help me paint a picture in my mind of why so many of my friends struggled with this, because I truly don't understand it, Nick.
Let's put all the health and brain stuff, anything that you like aside. So post-traumatic stress, TBI, injuries, let's put all that aside. When you join the military, it becomes part of your identity. Let's look at being a Marine specifically. That's where I was. So I was a Marine, and they have this saying, once a Marine, always a Marine. And then you get into Marine recon, and you're like, oh man, I'm a force recon Marine. Then we go, you're a Marine Raider, and they say Marine Raider for life. There's like a Navy SEAL. If you're a Navy SEAL, you're a Navy SEAL forever, right? That is something that you wear as a badge of honor, and rightfully so. But when you got to think, it is like a bad action movie. When you are these guys, every special operations movie that you've watched, there's a certain persona of the individual, right? Of that person playing that character. I mean, it is who they are. It's how they think. It's how it's the clothes they wear. It's the way they talk. It's where they live, where their kids go to school, who they hang out with. It is everything they are. If you're a Marine Raider, if you're Navy SEAL, if you're Green Beret, it is not what you do. It is who you are. So now you've taken your job and you've attached it to your identity. And what happens when that job leaves?
You lose your identity.
If I'm not a Navy SEAL, I'm not a Green Beret, I'm not a Marine, I'm not a Marine Raider, then who the fuck is Nick? If I'm not this thing that I worked so incredibly hard to achieve, then what am I? And I know this is where the problem comes into play. And this is how I know it. So as I was running around with this book, Excommunicated Warrior, the 7 Stages of Transition, I started to give this speech to people. And you know who started to walk up to me? Cops, firefighters, professional athletes, moms who have raised kids their entire adult life, and then the kids leave and they're like, shit, who am I? What am I supposed to do now? People of divorce. I had this family unit. Now I'm divorced. I'm single. I'm 40 something years old. What the hell? I was a family person. The sports person, I'll give you a quick story, because some people can't understand the military, but a lot of people can understand sports. So you take a young man, you put him in, pee-wee football. He plays football at pee-wee. So basically, like, when your initial memories, 4-year-olds playing football, basically just running around on the field, doing things, right? But that's when he starts. And then he plays in elementary or in a club, and then he plays in middle school, and then high school comes around. Then he's a collegiate level athlete. Then he gets drafted by the NFL. But by 23, he blows his knee out on a game, and his career as a football player is over. And he's 23 years old. All this man has ever known from as long as he can remember is playing football on a field with a team. And at 23, you took that away from him. He's not that anymore. What do you think that's going to happen to that young man?
He's going to try to either find his identity or find
self-destruction.
Yeah.
Self-destruction. And this is, we see this with bad decisions, bad money-making decisions, alcohol, drugs. If they have a family, they start cheating on their wife, and, or whatever it is, they make self-destructive decisions because they are lost. So that is what happens in, post-military. You have all these experiences, everything that you were, you're this war fighter, and you come home and you're not that anymore. You're just a dude.
Wow. You're saying that. Now, remember I said I was a pro snowboarder, and I remember California, hit a jump. We were out there for a photo shoot, just early morning, bluebird day. I went too fast to the jump. First guy hitting it, just because I just was excited, overshot it, blew up everything. Just my body just got just trashed.
How old were you?
32 at that point. And that was it. That was it, man. Like, all those years from, pro from 19 on till 32, and it was just over right there. But I wasn't willing to accept it was over. I fought and rode, and I filmed the video part broken. It was the most painful thing, but I did it. I pushed through and couldn't win anymore, man. I don't know what happened. I don't know if physically I lost something. I don't know if mentally I was just, not at the top anymore, and it became apparent just because of this event. And I did. I literally, I don't know if I went into a self-destruction mode, but I certainly became depressed.
Yep.
Couldn't figure out what I was doing. Everything suffered around me. And, it wasn't until I found coaching. I started coaching a national team. I was very reluctant to doing it. I actually remember getting offered. I said, no, I'm a rider, not a coach. I'm not going to coach a team. And then
that's not who I am.
Exactly.
That's not,
you want me to
who
coach?
I am?
Put me on the field. Let me hit that jump. I'll show you how to do this. Yeah. Well, that wasn't the thing. And I remember thinking about it. I'm like, all right, fine. Maybe I'll coach. I get paid. It's pretty good pay. I get free tickets. I'm on the hill again. I got a reason to ride. So I did it. I coached for 6 years. I took that national team to first place podiums every year that I was a coach, and I found myself again. I give that story, not because I'm trying to talk about me, but because that's exactly what you do.
Yeah.
You do that every day now. Chapter 5, the final chapter, is where you're at today.
Yeah.
You have made an entire.
Well, it's not the final chapter.
It's not the final chapter, but it's the final chapter. Final chapter of this episode of this podcast. Yeah. Sorry, let me be clear on that. This is definitely just for this episode of this podcast. So you do some amazing things. You run 7 companies now. You help tens of thousands of people. You help fathers. You got the shirt, Make Fathers Great Again. I love that. Yeah. But you also, even in your own team, you're obviously through the military and all these different things you've learned about teamwork. But the one thing I heard, and I don't know where I heard it, but you said, do better, always do better. No matter how good your team's doing, you say we can always do better. And I respect that. And that's what you do. So can we just talk a little bit in this final part of this episode about like how you're changing people's lives, what you're doing, and those lives could be your kids, could be your team, or all, the men and women transitioning from war and military into this life that you now live.
I think that I found there's a book, one of my mentors, this book right here, What's Life For? Is It For You? Where will you be in 5 years from today? Have you ever seen this?
I never have.
I mean, it literally is like, it's Chris, it's basically I know that for those listeners, you can't see it, but it's just big. It's just big words and like
My
pictures.
kind of book.
Yeah.
Life is 5. Is that the name of it?
Where will you be in 5 years from today?
Oh.
And essentially what it is it is a book that asks you questions to figure out what your mission statement is, your personal mission statement, not what your company is, but what your purpose is. And you have to be really honest with yourself. And through that book, and that was, like I said, it was given to me by one of my friends and mentors, Kirk Weisler, amazing guy. He said, I want you to go through this. And through that book, I really did find my personal mission statement. And that is to inspire, educate, and motivate people to live a healthier and better life. That's my, like, if you want to talk about passion, you want to talk about something that makes me, it fills my heart up. It's watching people become the very best version of themselves and achieve their goals in life. And so many times, and the biggest regret that I have, if I have any, which I don't really believe in regrets because it's all learning things, but if I want to call it a regret, the one regret that I would change is I would have hired, and you already said it, you did, I would have hired a mentor or a coach way long ago. Now I had some, but I would have I would have figured out how to take in a portion of my money that I did have or didn't have and give it to someone who was going to hold me accountable and to assist me with navigating through the muck and to get me to where I wanted to be, or at least help me find where I wanted to be. Because when I did that, I got 3 years worth of results in a year, not just in business, but personal. My relationship with my significant other, me as a father, because it put all the things in my head and organized them. I got rid of a bunch of the noise and focused on exactly what I was supposed to be doing. So now, months, years later, this is what, when I found out my personal mission statement, I was like, oh, wow, what I've done for myself, which I had to do years of it going through, with no mentor, no coach, which takes a lot longer, right? It takes a lot longer. And luckily I had some really good people in my life, and I had a mission to help other people. So making a long story short, through helping other people, I used myself as a guinea pig to go through different therapies and different things and to learn all these different techniques of how to either make money, market, meditation, post-traumatic stress therapy, relationship therapy, all these different things, right? I use myself as a guinea pig, but by doing so, I had to own a lot of my own shit and to figure my stuff out. And that's what really led me to where I'm at today. And that's where my mission state came into play. And I'm like, now it's the feeling. Okay, for instance, when you donate money to someone or you buy someone lunch, truly altruistic, like I want to do this for somebody. That is, unless you're just a weirdo, that is a better feeling than having it done for you.
100%.
Right? Like there is no better feeling than taking care of someone or helping someone that's in need. So when I get messages, either from that book or, like you said, a video that I've produced, or even, and then taking it to the next level where I have either a one-on-one relationship, coaching relationship, or it's in my mentorship group. When I hear that 4 years ago, this person was ready to take their life, their relationship, they were drinking heavily, the relationship was on the fringe, they were broke, they were, living out of a car, etc. And through my communication with them, they completely changed their life. They have a relationship. They have a significant other. They have a great relationship with. They're making money. They have a relationship with their kids. Their life is on track. They're passionate. They're motivated to achieve, to achieve their goals. All because of our interaction. Like that's one life that I just changed by you and I. The stuff that we're talking about. How powerful is that? Men getting together to support each other, to become better versions of each other.
I love it. Let me ask you a question. What took you so long to get a mentor?
I didn't know any better.
Okay.
Truly didn't know. Didn't have the experience or education to get to even know that that was something was out there. But as I became more successful of through multiple failures, I think you get to a point to where you're like, I'm done, and I'm sure you've done it too. Like, I'm done fucking around. Like, I'm ready to take this thing to the moon or take this to the next level. And I'm like, I will do whatever it takes to make that happen. So when you get that mindset to like, I'm going to let the ego is the mother of all setbacks. Like, if you've got an ego, that is the thing holding you back. Because like with your mentor, like a good mentor is going to piss you off. He or she is going to frustrate you. And the reason, and hear me when I say this, that frustration is coming from a place of either incompetence or ego, or let's see, maybe some inconsistencies in your life, some lack of discipline, and they're going to call you on it. A good one is going to call you on all your bullshit. And that's why you get frustrated. But that's what you want.
Then you want more.
Once you let go of that ego and that idea of what you have of yourself, when you let that go, oh man, when you can finally unburden yourself from that and those insecurities, that's when true growth starts to happen.
Hell yeah, it does. Because then once you get rid of that, and I'm relating right back to that one point, then all of a sudden, when that coach doesn't call you out, you're like, coach, don't you dare not tell me that I did,
exactly.
Like, hurt me, coach. Tell me I did that wrong. Like don't let me pass on that.
Because it's just funny. Like losing, right? So like, obviously, so I do a lot of jiu-jitsu. I'm a huge component of that. Like, there's so many, every time that I go there, I learn a life lesson from getting beat up. It's very strange. It's a very strange thing that once you get into it, you start seeing these life lessons that you learn from the mats, from the physical to a mental. And to really, really get good there, you have to lose all the time. So I go compete, right? And I lose. But through this competition and through this loss, I learned where my holes were that I didn't know. I didn't know just training where my holes were. I was training, but I had to go compete against somebody I didn't know for them to pull out all my flaws. They're all hidden. And they literally just like opened up a duffel bag and pulled out every flaw for the whole world to see and shine light on them. I didn't know they were there. That's what a good mentor does. A good mentor is going to pull out all your little flaws, all your little insecurities, all little things that's holding you back and to keep you from being better, that maybe you don't even notice. Absolutely. And he's going to call you on all of them.
And I remember one thing that held me back was money. I always thought when I have enough money, I'll get a coach. It was always money. Cause I didn't grow up with any money. So I always had this scarcity mindset. And, I'll give a quote that just not even a quote, just a saying to each and everyone listening. Cost is only an issue in the absence of value. The problem with that statement, cost is only an issue in the absence of value, is you need to determine what is value. Because everything, the price, like one of my mentors, I pay $5,000 a month for this mentor. He talks to me for 1 hour and maybe a couple of messages a month. Cost is only an issue in the absence of value. So how much value I get from that mentor is tremendous. It's worth more than 5,000. One introduction, him saying, exactly, you got to change this. It's worth 10,000, 20, 100,000. Like, that's the problem, folks. It's stop looking at the dollar signs of what something costs. Start looking at what the value is, or start looking at like what you're actually giving up by not spending that money. You're as everybody says, you're stepping over dollars to pick up pennies.
I got one for you. So I get a lot of, obviously people, if they're not there yet, if they're not on that mindset yet, they typically say, well, what's it cost? First question, right?
Always.
What's the cost? And I laugh and I'm like, I'll tell them, I don't have a problem. I can tell you exactly what our prices are. No issue there. But I like to respond with, let me ask you this. Let me ask you a question. what's the cost of you being exactly where you're at today a year from now? What does that cost?
Wow. Everything.
Everything. Absolutely everything. And same thing with, we have the Gogi, it's our men's coaching. I mean, we have females in there, but predominantly it's men, late 20s to mid 50s, fathers, husbands, and that are not living the life that they should physically. So we bring them on and we change their life. And sometimes we get some really sad stories, man, that are like, basically they're going to die within 10 years. Their health is they're in such a bad way. They've put their self on a back burner so bad that they now are, essentially going to die in the next 10 years of heart disease, stroke, obesity, symptoms. And then they go, for our 5-month program, which I don't know if if you lose 10 to 15% of your body mass, if you're extremely overweight, 10 to 15% is what you actually need to drastically increase your longevity in life and health. 10 to 15% of your overall body mass. If you lose that, blood work is better. Like now we're moving towards a more sustainable life. So I'll say, hey, for the 5-month program, it's going to be, I want to say it's $22.45, something like that. Let's just call it $2,500 total, which I think it's cheaper than that, but $2,500 for 5 months. Can't afford it. You're in 10 years. You just told me that your doctor said within 10 years, you're going to die. And you're telling me $2,500. Let me go talk to your kids. Let me ask your kids and your wife if $2,500 is worth their husband's life. Because that's what we're talking about. I mean, I'm Chris, and we're talking about these guys that are like, they're about to get their leg amputated for, diabetes. And they're like, no, I can't do it.
Yeah, it's just crazy what we put value on.
Exactly. And that's the thing that people need. Like you have to change your relationship with money. Money is a commodity. It's a tool. It's not going to buy, it's not going to buy you happiness. It won't. I'll tell you right now, it won't buy you happiness, but it will solve a lot of damn problems. You know what? The more money I make, the more I can take care of my kids. I can invest in them. And I'm not talking about investment accounts. I'm talking about real investment, getting them tutors, getting them things that are going to better their life, being able to spend time with them and take them on vacation. I take a lot of trips. You know how awesome that is for me? We're like, oh, it must be nice. Yeah, it must be nice that I work 120 hours a week also. And I scale and run my businesses and I build my team and I build everyone up around me. Yeah, that takes effort. That takes work. So yes, it is nice that I can book a trip to Greece and to go visit my family in Greece for a week or 2 weeks with my daughter for her 16th birthday. That's fucking awesome. And I worked every freaking day of the week, 7 days a week to achieve those things. That's what money buys. It buys you experiences. It buys you time. It buys you opportunity. The more money I make, the more money I can donate. The more money I make, the more money I can take care of my mom as she gets older, because she gave us the ability to survive through all those years, right? Took care of us while I was being a dumbass. So now the more money I make, the nicer place that I can put her, in more ways can I support her. Now, what happens if I wasn't? What happens if I was the opposite, the other guy? Sorry, mom, can't do nothing for you. Sorry, kids, can't do nothing for you. Sorry, employees, can't do nothing for you. Sorry, St. Jude's, I can't donate this year.
Yeah. It's changing your mindset.
That's not the life that I want to live. I want to make as much money as possible so that I can do more things with it. And I'm never going to apologize for that. There's this demonizing of success in our country, demonizing of making money and being profitable. Oh, you're just doing this for profit. Yes, I'm doing this. Yes, everything I do is for profit. It's to make money. 100%. That doesn't mean that I can't not change people's lives, but I want you to do the same thing. I want you to make so much money that you're like, I have more money than I need. I can go donate to the local church. I can donate to the homeless shelter. I can go donate to, kids fighting cancer. Like Johnny Strong, there's a kid up in PA that's, he said he's 7 years old, had 197 treatments of chemo. That family lives off donations, lives off of them. Kid is 7 years old, had 197. So yes, I want to make as much fucking money as I can so I can support that kid. Cause that's fucking awesome. That's the real fighter.
That's right. And, you know, for a lot of people, let me just give you one thing I did. And, you know, I come from a weird background, not getting into it, but here's how I started to train myself to give. Folks, you don't like what he just said. You make more, you can give more. You got to start giving. And everybody, you know, like you said, I don't have any money. I'll give when I get. That's society brainwashing.
That's completely backwards.
Here's how you change that. How many of you in the mail get those letters that come asking you for a donation? Sometimes there's a nickel on it or a thing. What do you do with them? I bet you if you're honest with yourself, you throw them out, don't you? Yeah. You don't even open them. You just tear them up. Ah, another one looking for money. Change one thing. Change how you view that. Here's what I started doing. And I started doing this many years ago because I used to be that person that said, oh, well, when I have money, I'll give. I can't wait till I have money to give.
Yeah, so was I. Yeah.
I started getting those envelopes. And you know what I did? I treated them like gold. I started opening them up. And my whole staff here knows this. And they help me with this. I open them up. I take it out. I take the envelope. I tear the page off. I don't read any of the stuff. I tear the page off that says for the donation. I put it down and I immediately grab a pen and whatever's in my heart, I just write it. $5, $20, $1,000. I physically write a check. I'm old fashioned. I write checks for everything. I write a check, put it in, lick it, send it. And then you know what happens once you start giving once, more come. This one comes, that one comes. And you know, then at the beginning, you're looking at it like, oh, I don't really want to donate to cows that, you know, this. And I stopped looking at what they were for. And I started thinking about give. Just close your eyes. Don't even look at it and just give, because this is what God would want. This is what makes the world go round.
Yeah.
And I write checks for all of these. And the more you write checks for these, there's some master database, of course, that like notifies every charity in the world.
Chris is writing checks.
But here's what I started doing. Check this out. So I started doing, I built a habit. And that habit, every check I write, I feel so good. Folks, listen, like, I don't care if the check's $2. I don't care if they say, you know, $5 is the minimum. There's always one that says other, put $1. It's the act, folks. It's not the amount. The amount is irrelevant. It's the act. It's the thought. Now I get so many. I have my desk right now. I have a stack this big, but I have a large presence on social media. So now what I do is like once a month, we'll go on social media and I'll pull it out on one of my lives, one of my trainings. All we teach is money. And I start writing a check for it. And I say, hey, how many of you, I tell the story, how many of you would like to write one of these checks? I don't care the amount. And then I have the stack and I start calling them off. All right, this is, you know, we'll use St. Jude because I get that. St. Jude, who wants St. Jude? And I literally, what we do is we literally get their address in the chat and we send them the thing, but we make them like get in the act of writing the check. I started doing this. So now, like, I can only write so many checks and handle so much, but because of my actions, other people want to do it because it feels good. And then as they start doing the same thing, they're going to start telling people, what is the butterfly effect of your actions? Simple actions. $1, you won't miss it. Nope. $5, you won't miss it. $1,000, I promise you, you won't miss it. It's the act, folks. Like, that's changed everything. Nick, I got to go one bonus round because now you got me fired up here. The world is fucked up right now. This country is fucked up right now. Excuse my language, but it is. There's a book that my late friend Stefan Arnio wrote. And it's, to me, I truly, I've never said this before, but I believe there are prophets that come into our lives at certain points. Many of them stay for a short period, like my friend Stefan, but he wrote a book called Hard Times Create Strong Men.
Yeah.
Beast of a book. If you read the whole book, though, you'll understand why I know that this man was a prophet and God just needed him somewhere else. You know, that's all there is to it. That is the truth. But we have been living in a world where easy times, especially this country, let's focus just on the United States, where easy times have become the norm. And it has created a very weak society, a society that's easy led, a society where people just do whatever they're told to do, the conformity society, I like to call it. How you teach the complete opposite, which is why I want to do this bonus. How do we change this? Because this is on a crash course. I mean, many things can happen. I mean, this great country of, you know, where too many people, Nick, you know, far more have given way too much for what we have. And we are just allowing it to be given away. Maybe some of us aren't allowing it, but society in this weak mentality is allowing it to just be taken from us. Like, how is it that we're going to change the course of this? I mean, going back to like one check for $1. Like that's a small act, but it gets other people to do it. Like, how do we get this whole thing back on track before we literally enter very hard times, which I think might be the course where we're going. And then it's going to force all of you to create hard men and women, and you're not going to like it, but maybe that's the inevitable. What is your take?
So before we get into the inevitable, I think we need to go back to men being men. And what I mean by that is men having
World War II.
Okay, sure. That generation of men, and even I want to say even back into the 80s and early 90s, men had values. What I mean by that is we had a code. Men held other men accountable. Today, everyone is so afraid that someone's going to get their feelings hurt that they don't say things. If your neighbor was doing something, beating his wife, acting like an asshole, drinking, whatever, most time they're like, oh, I don't want to get involved. 40 years ago, you would have went next door and been like, hey, Bill, one more time, I'm going to knock your teeth out. Get your shit together. Why? Because we care. If you don't care, then yeah, of course you're not going to do that. But men stop being men. Men stop caring about the community outside of their own families. The hell, they don't. And most time they don't even care about their own families and holding themselves accountable. So not only do we need to be held accountable individually, but we need to start holding other men accountable as well. If you give a shit, pick up your phone and go, hey, you're acting like an asshole. You're acting like a child. Get your shit together. It's time to start being a man. Who does that? Who calls either one of their friends or one of their men on their bullshit? Or a family member?
I do for family members. I'm not going to lie. Family members and friends. I'm an asshole, but being from New York,
why is it? It's because you care about them.
Of course.
Like you think that I want to interrupt my day to have an uncomfortable conversation with you about you being a dickhead? It's not what I want to do. I wish you just wouldn't be a dickhead so I didn't have to have this conversation. But we stopped doing that. We stopped being men of action. We stopped being men of accountability. We stopped being men of growth. And then look what it did. And now I have an entire talk that I do on family, and we can do this another time or another podcast, but the degradation of the family unit. And I'm sure you're tracking all of that, over history and decades and what the government is involved for all the way from, the 60s to now. But outside of that, the reason why this country is in the situation that it is because we as men have allowed it to happen. That's it. If men had values and we were strong community leaders and we were united as communities, back in the 60s, we had that. There were men's groups, not just like in full neighborhoods, communities, whatever neighborhood you were in, whatever town, counties, whatever it was, men got together, linked up, broke bread, talked about the issues, and they came together to do whatever. We don't do that anymore. And maybe it's because of media, maybe it's because of society. It's a lot of different reasons why that we're all special butterflies that are individuals now. But if we had strong men in this country the way we did years ago, the government essentially would not be able to pull off what they did the past 2 years, because entire communities of men would go, no, you're not going to do that. There's a lot more of us than there are of them. And when you have just look at in the 60s, a 1 million man march when there was no internet. You got 1 million people linked up for one common goal via phone calls and mail. You know how amazing that is? We have the internet now. We have social media now, and it's very difficult to pull those same situations off.
Near impossible.
Near impossible.
I could spend 15 minutes and hit over 1 million people, and there's no way that would ever happen.
No, exactly. But then they did. Why? Because men had values. Men had values, they had integrity, and their community, their family, their values were important enough for them to do something and take action and either hold themselves accountable, hold their brother accountable, or hold the federal government accountable. And not in a way of violence, but of values, of foundations. If we can bring those men back, we will change the country. We will change the country. We will change our children's lives. We'll change our wives' lives. This will be the country that the world wants to emulate.
Wow. So good, man. I said earlier, I said cost is only an issue in the absence of value.
Right.
That value you just described is what we all need to start realizing. And what is the cost? It's not a dollar sign anymore, folks. It's our freedom.
Yep.
It's everything is the cost. So determine what your cost is, and then,
what are you willing to lose?
Value is.
Yeah. What are you willing to lose? What are you willing your kids to lose? What kind of life do you want your kids to have? Because that's what that's what you're going to lose. That's what you're going to give up.
Wow. So beautiful. Folks, inch stones, start with the small things to start changing that. One little thing leads to another. The butterfly effect is real. Make it happen. Nick, this has been incredible. You know, I want every one of you listening to this. There's several things you have to do, but I really want to drive you to one thing. It's called Always Forward. It's the mentorship group Nick does. The link will be in the description. Make me a promise. We just gave you a ton of value and a ton of our time. Our time's worth a lot, and we just gave it to you for nothing. So you now are going to give us your time by going, and you're going to check that link out for his mentorship group. And then you could go down this path, but believe me, make sure there's enough time. I'll be the one to contest. Go to Nick's YouTube channel. Watch just one, and you'll lose yourself. They're so good. He's also got a production company called Robin Hood Pictures that, basically talks about men who have given up everything for their country. We talk about that cost. That's the cost, and how they've altered the course of history. Watch those. All the stuff that you're doing, Nick, is so powerful. We just need to get more eyes on it. And we also need to get more fathers to be great again and stand up for other children that don't have fathers. We need to put that father unit back in the family. And I love that you're helping that. With that being said, what other places could people find you, Nick?
I'm all over I'm all in all the things, but Instagram is probably the biggest one. The text group, if someone's really serious and they want to text me, I've got my number on there for my community text group. And that's about it. It's easy. If you want to get a hold of me, it's really not difficult. I've got a team people that funnel those questions and answer people. And, if they need to get to me, but the biggest one to get the one-on-one is those coaching groups and the mentorship group. That's where we start laying out your 90-day plan and start chipping away at putting you in the right direction, making you become the person that you're supposed to be.
Love it. Cost is only an issue in the absence of value.
Absence of value. That's right.
Folks, thank you so much for joining us. Nick, thank you for your time today. We will see you all on the next episode. Check the description for all those links. Take action. Stop just gathering knowledge. It's the action that's going to change your life. Till next time. Talk to you soon. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. We're putting up tons of them, but I think if you like this one, you'll probably like that video as well. Not only that, I've got a book that I created, Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery, where we actually show you what the wealthy do in the game they play with money. I want you to have that for free. And if you want to know about all my new videos coming up, click that alert button. Actually, smash that alert button, and you'll be notified every time we put a new video. So we'll see you on the next episode.